We're okay? I'd like to welcome all of you today. We're very fortunate to have a great artist here this afternoon. I'd like to say a little bit about him. I'm sure some of you have seen it in the program or the bulletin or in the newspaper, the Gazette Journal, but just to be sure everybody understands or knows, I'm going to read from our bulletin our information. Timothy Seaman is a proud native of West Virginia. He's lived in Virginia since 1956 and in Williamsburg since 1970. An English graduate of the College of William and Mary, a 4-summer backpacking instructor as a Philmont Ranger, and a veteran of 19 years of school teaching.
Now 26, actually.
26? You need to change that number. Teaching school is a tough job, believe me. He's continually been involved in music and made it his sole endeavor since 1994. He has since 1978 produced or co-produced 19 recordings, that's right? And totaling 131,000 copies. So we'd like to welcome him this afternoon. He's going to introduce his numbers as he goes because he prefers that, and that's great with us. And I'd like for Pastor Paul to please come up and begin our program.
Thank you, Ann. Welcome, Mr. Seaman. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Relaxed enough to enjoy the music? Yes. Please let your tension go. Relax. Ready to receive the wonderful music. And my name is Paul Seaman, pastor, serving this congregation. Yeah, I live in James City County. James City County. Welcome. Yeah. Is that it? By Babel's streams we sat and wept, while Zion we thought on. Amidst thereof we hung our harps, the willow trees upon. With all the power and skill I have, I'll gently touch each string, if I can reach the charming sound, I'll tune my harp again.
my sound coming across? It's hitting you between the eyes? That's what we need. Anyway, I can see that people are seated to be able to see the hammer dulcimer well. Feel free to move if you need a little better view. I try to set it this way. A lot of hammer dulcimer players face the audience like a guitarist, and so the audience gets to see a little bit of a forehead over a piece of wood, you know? And so I turn it so the sound and the vision makes more sense. So I'm Timothy Seaman, and I've got to, of course, say, oh, it's so wonderful to be in one of my favorite places today, Gloucester. Just kidding. Gloucester. Anyway, so good to be with you all. Thank you for coming out on this beautiful outdoor day and being inside for it. I'm an outdoorsman. A lot of the music that I do is about the outdoors, so at least that'll have that connection there. The pieces I just played, if you don't know what they are, and you may well not know what they are two Appalachian folk hymns. And I put them together in the medley, partly because I thought the tunes go together well with each other, but also that they talk about trees. And I did a project called Sycamore Rapids for the Virginia State Parks that talked about Virginia trees. Now these two are trees that are in Virginia, but they're not from here. And so you heard me sing about, we hung our harps the willow trees upon. I don't sing on my albums, by the way, but there are versions of these pieces on my albums in the instrumental part. And did you know that the weeping willow, which I think is actually a Chinese tree originally, is called Salix babylonicus? It's named for that Bible verse about hanging our harps on the willow trees, which I thought was fascinating. And then the other tune is called Samarantha. And these are both from the old shape notebooks. And Samarantha has the words, his voice as the sound of the dulcimer sweet is heard through the shadows of death. The cedars of Lebanon bow at his feet. The air is perfumed with his breath. So it's incredible words, and I try to evoke that in the way that I do the music, though I'm breaking all the rules of the shape note singers. This is one of the most famous ones. This is called the Southern Harmony, and the other famous one is the Sacred Harp, and they've both been in production. They've been in print for hundreds of years, since the early 1800s, and so this is where I find some of these. I'll share some later on as well. So the reason I say break all the rules, they actually say in the introductions to these books. Now, I don't know how many of you all are Methodists, or I'm a Presbyterian, you know, how many belong to certain kinds of churches, and certain individual churches, people have very strong opinions about what the worship music should be like. People talk about worship wars. I don't want to make any references to anybody, but everybody has their ideas about what is best, and they disagree, and that's just the way life is, you know. And C.S. Lewis wrote a thing on church music where he said he thought the most important thing about all these disagreements is learning how to get along with each other. It's like, that's why we have church music, so we'll learn to get along. You know? But anyway, what they say in the beginning of these books, I'll try not to lecture too much, what they say in the beginning of these books is, droney music is the best because it's spiritual. If you have octaves and fifths and fourths, but not those sweet thirds. You know, major and minor thirds, those are sweet, and that makes it worldly. So that's the angle they have. And they say it has to be sung a cappella, no instruments. Oops. Anyway, I'm going to invite people up at the end if you want to come up and, you know, look at stuff and talk and all. But anyway, so the book will be up here. Why don't I totally change to a different kind of music. Like I said, I write a lot of compositions about nature, and here's one from that same project, Sycamore Rapids project. And I'm going to ask for you to, in your mind, go on a canoe ride and fishing trip with me on the James River, way upstream, beyond Farmville, below Scottsville. There's a James River State Park up there, out in the middle of nowhere. It's a wonderful place. And there are rapids. The Tye River comes into the James right there, coming down from Crabtree Falls area. And we're going to put in with a canoe really early in the morning, okay? And we're going to go through some rapids. And there's sycamore trees hanging over the banks like they do, and some red maples too, you know. And we're going to stop in the middle and fish for a while, and that's signified by a quote from Schubert's song, The Trout. Then we'll go through some more rapids. So before I begin this piece, I'm going to ask you to make sure that your personal flotation devices are properly fitted, you have an extra paddle, plenty of water, and that all your fishing gear is in place. Okay, you with me? Okay, Sycamore Rapids. hands. Even me, playing all these years, they drop out of my hands every now and then. So, anyway, did anybody catch anything? How big? Nice. Oh, nice. Catfish back there. Oh, yeah. Anyway, anybody capsize? No capsizing. Not in this. The water's cold now. Yeah. Anyway, so the Thai River, like I said, comes down out of the Blue Ridge area, and the most famous park along the Blue, well, the most famous one in Virginia along the Blue Ridge is, of course, Shenandoah National Park. I was just up there playing these pieces and other ones in Big Meadows Lodge a couple weeks ago. Had a wonderful time every year doing that. And I have an album called Here on This Ridge that I collaborated with the Shenandoah Park on, that they've had in their shops now since 1997. Over a quarter of a century, they're still selling CDs in their shops. I'm so glad for that. But anyway, it includes various compositions, and I've done some for them on the other albums as well. So I wanted to do a medley of Shenandoah National Park related pieces. I'm going to start first with Big Meadows Twilight. And one of the funnest things about this one, I have many things to say. I want to get them out of the way. One is, if you don't know what a hammered dulcimer is, that's what this is. This is an extended range, very full sounding one, and I try to make it very piano-like sounding. They were invented, I'm of the opinion, they were invented in the ancient Persian Empire. The people in that part of the world who play this, they call it the Santur in Iran and India. They say they invented it in the time of the ancient Persian Empire, and there's no clear reason not to believe that. There is a picture from ancient Assyria that was dug up of what could be someone playing one of these. But it was probably taken to Europe during the Crusades, taken to China 1,000 years ago or something. It's a popular instrument in China called the yangqin. It's called the kim in Thailand and all these different places. You know, it's the cimbalom in Hungary. It came to America probably here in the 1600s and was popular in America as the dulcimer for about 300 years and sort of died away about 100 years ago. And I'm part of the new breed of players. And this is, a modern version of it designed by Sam Rosetta and Ray Moores. And so anyway, it inspired the invention of the piano. Around 1700, they said, let's make a mechanical chromatic version of the dulcimer with a hammer for each note and a button to push. And that's how the piano came to be. And the dampers were invented for the piano and then back applied to the dulcimer family, starting in Hungary 150 years ago, and then America about 50 years ago. And so you've heard a little bit of the damper action there. So I wanted to mention that just so that you get the idea of that in case you need to know. And what I try to do more than just about anybody else is play like a pianist. I want the dulcimer to sound like a piano. And so for the first piece, Big Meadows Twilight, that's the first piece I composed to try to do this technique that I had in mind I wanted to develop, of stylized separated hands, like a pianist separates their hands. And I use the suede side of the hammers and so forth. So if you've been in Big Meadows, how many people know what I'm talking about when I say Big Meadows? Oh, yes, this is a good crowd. If you haven't been there, you need to go there. It's a high mountain meadow, 3,400 feet above sea level. The first peoples had burned that area off probably as a place for hunting for centuries, and the Park Service has kept that tradition, so it has not grown up in forest all these centuries. And it's just got this marvelous feeling about it. And you can look out across the mountain peaks like Old Rag. And twilight is one of the most special times. All the deer come out browsing and so forth. And so one time when this is my longest talk, okay? One time when I wrote this piece in 2000, I wanted a picture of it. And so my daughter was a student at UVA, and I actually drove to UVA, picked her up. We drove up to Big Meadows at twilight time and set up my dulcimer, and I played Big Meadows Twilight in the twilight at Big Meadows while she took pictures. And we used those pictures for album things and all. And then after that, I'll play some other, Spring in the Gap, Limberlost. I don't know how many to do. I'll do a bunch. Why not? Let's pretend we're there, you know. So there's Big Meadows Twilight, Spring in the Gap, which is sort of an old Joe Clark-y type tune, and then Limberlost, which is for the old hemlocks that now have died from the woody adelgid aphids, not too far from Big Meadows, and then Hazel River, which was a hike down the mountain from the Skyline Drive to falls, and so it goes down the Dulcimer, of course. It's a real hike we did in 1977, and then I'll finish with Shenandoah, the old tune. trouble keeping track of keys there for a moment. You know, one of the things about the hammered dulcimer that you may not know, I mentioned that the piano was a chromatic version of the dulcimer. This is actually what you call a diatonic instrument, which means it only has the do-re-mi scale. It doesn't have those other notes in between like a piano does. That means I dedicate myself to pushing the limits of what I can do with with diatonic things, do-re-mi things, rather than adding all the, and there are various ways of reaching into other keys and all, but you can see in that last piece, and in a lot of my pieces, I change keys a lot. So I'll do the same kind of thing in a totally different place, and it gives this kind of effect that's not like, okay, we're in the same key all the time. Sometimes being in the same key all the time is very effective, so some of my pieces do that too, and they develop in a different way. Somebody said everybody here is a musician, so maybe you all know what I'm talking about. You're all musicians, right? In a minute, maybe we'll prove it. I don't know. We'll see. Have somebody come up and play the hammered dulcimer for everybody. How about you? No. So actually, I want to move to a different instrument and do something totally different, but stay at Shenandoah National Park. But first, drinking lukewarm coffee and live stream. You can improvise even if you've never done music before, and you can make it sound good. One way to do it is just banging around on a hammered dulcimer and staying in the same area and repeating patterns, and it all sounds good. And I can show you what that means afterwards if you're interested. But you also can go to the black keys of a piano. Hey, if they let you play a Steinway and Sons grand piano, you can play really fine sounding music on the black keys of the piano just by staying on the black keys of the piano. It's a pentatonic scale that's universally beloved, and it always sounds good. You can just kind of play a few notes, play them again, play them backwards, change one note, and listen for the sounds and see what you like. And you have just become a musician if you weren't one before. If you've not been an improviser, you have just become an improviser. That's called free improvisation with the pentatonic scale. And what I'm going to do with this bamboo flute is something I did for the Shenandoah National Park. And last week I didn't have my PA set up. This week I do, so I get to play it in a special way. I get to use an effect. I'm not going to try to fool anybody. This is not the flute making all the sound. But this is a bamboo flute made in Floyd, Virginia by a guy that makes marvelous stuff. He's a retired hippie, subsistent, well, he's a continual hippie, retired other things, and lives subsistence farming up in a holler, barefoot all the time, never wears a shirt, never goes indoors hardly ever, and builds these flutes outdoors up against a cliff. And he used to go into people's yards in Florida to get the bamboo, and then he got his own stand down there and he uses that, but he used to go into the yards to get the bamboo, and his name is Rob Yard. That is the name of the guy who made this, really is. Anyway, but this is a fine instrument, and I wanted to use that pentatonic scale for a couple of reasons. One was you can improvise so easily with it. Another, this is a diatonic instrument also, and this, and I wanted to represent nature in my composition, sort of signify nature with the pentatonic scale. And so this is kind of combining those. And this is a tribute to the return of the peregrine falcons to the Blue Ridge in the mid-1990s. Scientists brought them up there to try to reestablish them in their former territory, and they had places blocked off for nesting sites and all. And I would climb up on the rocks on Stony Man or Hawksbill, and I could see them jumping off of crags and catching the updraft like hang gliders, and just float out over the Page Valley screaming. And we're not supposed to be anthropomorphic, but I think they were having fun. You know, so this is Falcons Among Crags. Pardon me? Oh, you're not talking about, okay. I'm a school teacher. Somebody says something in class, I say, tell the whole class. The pentatonic scale, like I said, is internationally recognized and beloved. And I almost totally use that. Oh, the second piece I did that was totally different, I realized I hadn't introduced it, but I went ahead and played it. It's called My Thoughts Linger There, because I love it down here in the estuaries and the tidal swamps and all these places. I've lived here now for 52 years, since I came as a teenager to William and Mary, and haven't been able to escape to the mountains except on trips. But I was born in West Virginia, and I got the mountains in my blood, and so that's a tribute. That's a tribute to my thoughts lingering back there in the mountains as well. And like you heard in the introduction, I was a 4-summer backpacking instructor in the Rockies too, and that's in my blood. So this is a Native American flute. This is made in Arizona by. They say Native American. I don't care for the term because, I mean, I was born in America. Native means born. I'm a Native American in that sense, you know. But, so I'd like to say First Peoples, First Nations, like that is probably more appropriate. But this was made by a guy who's like, I think he says he's Ojibwa, and his name is Odell Borg. But anyway, you know, because people get whatever name gets handed down. But this is a pentatonic instrument also in kind of a different way. And this is made out of red cedar. It's got a raptor, I think either a red-tailed hawk or a golden eagle symbol here on the fipple. And then they tie it down over the sound producing hole there. All flutes are flutes because they have a sharp edge that splits the sound to create the vibration. That's what makes a flute a flute. That means an athletic whistle is a flute in that way. It just doesn't have different notes. So anyway, this has pentatonic scale. Native Americans in the East, I don't think played these much. They're mostly a Western instrument. But I don't think they have any tunes, really. Because the whole idea is you make the music on the spot. You don't play a tune. That's the tradition. And originally, so I've read, they were only played by young men who made their own flute. And they would use them as a courting instrument. So a young man has his sights set on a certain young woman, and he would like to court her. So he has a mentor lead him through the process of selecting a piece of wood and forming it into a flute, and then making it his own musical voice. And then he would go and sit outside the young woman's house and start playing. Could you imagine being her, sitting in your house, and all of a sudden you hear this flute outside? Oh my, I wonder who it is. So I just use it to actually compose pieces. I improvise, but I'm going to, a composed piece that was originally built from a chart I made, where you can take letters of the alphabet in words that don't include A through G necessarily. You know, some words do, like egg. You could make a melody off of the letters E, G, G. Hey, try it, you know. But I made a chart where I could take other words, and I took the name of one of Pocahontas's name. Do y'all know the 3 names of Pocahontas? She had at least 3. One was Pocahontas. What's another one?
When she went to England.
I couldn't hear what she was. What was the name? Matoaka. Yeah. And she's also called Rebecca Rolfe, right? Yeah. And so I took her names and put them into this chart to see what notes they would generate. And I can show you the chart later if you're interested. And Matoaka actually came out sounding like a Native American series of notes, or First People series of notes. So I built this piece off of those letters of Matoaka. And it's called Pocahontas Remembers, and it's supposed to kind of be her thinking back over the course of her short life as she's crossing the Atlantic wearing English clothes, being called Rebecca Rolfe, as she's going across the Atlantic as a royal princess and Englishwoman to meet the royalty in London, which is kind of an amazing moment, you know, and so I call it Pocahontas Remembers. I try to make it really piano-like. I think I'll go ahead and play a Scottish piece. It's on my Celtic Airs album. It's sort of in the middle of a medley. But I'm going to play this familiar Scottish piece. By the way, my friend Ann Robinson and her husband went to Loch Lomond earlier this year in Scotland, and did all sorts of videos of riding on a boat on the lake and all that. It's gorgeous stuff. And she decided to make a video and put it on YouTube. It's in my YouTube channel now, where she made a video of it, of Loch Lomond, with the track from my Celtic Airs album, which she also plays on a little bit. I think she plays on that track, on Celtic Harp, of Loch Lomond, as you're seeing the views of Loch Lomond. So if you're interested in going to Timothy Seaman on YouTube, and you see the channel, and it's there posted. But most people who play hammered dulcimer learn Loch Lomond because it's in the learning books, the tune books, and people will play it at jams and stuff like that. But I wanted to milk it for all it's worth. So I'm going to play it the basic way, where you just kind of play it with the hard side of the hammers, and it's a beautiful tune, maybe add a little bit of simple harmonies, you know. And then I'm going to launch into my very romanticized, but you know, I'm Scots-Irish background, and we're dramatic type people, you know. We want drama, and so this is what I like to do with it. Could you tell the difference? Just thought. Anyway, one more medley, quick medley of hammered dulcimer, and then I'll move to some other instruments again. Do you know the story of Pachelbel's canon? I've been telling it for a while now. I just learned the story in Wikipedia a few years ago. And it must be true because it's in Wikipedia. But actually, some things in Wikipedia are really not true because there are trolls going in there changing things all the time. That's generally controversial things that happens too. But this, you know, things like this often are just very helpful, I think. And by the way, Britannica isn't necessarily better because their editors have opinions, you know, but okay. I was an English teacher, so I have to think about these things. But the Pachelbel was a great Baroque composer of the same time as Bach. And he and Weiss, what's Weiss's name? Anyway, if anybody knows him, he wrote great lute pieces. They knew each other to a certain extent, and they listened to each other's music. They'd read it on a score and pick up things from it and compose their own stuff with things in mind. So Bach knew about Pachelbel, and might have known him personally. I know he knew Weiss and Telemann personally, and he heard Buxtehude play organ one time. And got a lot from that. Okay, I'm getting off the subject here. But Pachelbel, around 1700, wrote this canon. But canons around that time were meant to be these mathematical puzzles that were kind of, look how deeply mathematical I am. And Bach was one of the greatest mathematicians of all time. He was a genius with numbers. And that's why his music has certain characteristics. And Pachelbel, you know, Bach wrote a lot of canons in his musical offering that are these amazing puzzles. They go forward, backward, half speed. He wrote these little crazy things about how they were puzzles. And Pachelbel wrote this beautiful canon, and it was like not publishable. It was like, this is easy listening. This is not what canons do. You know, I mean, it is what they do, but they overlap in a certain way and all that. And it wasn't published. In 1919, somebody made a book of previously unpublished Baroque pieces, you know, and it thought it'd include that, and it was in there, nobody noticed it, until 50 years later, exactly, 1969, a guy named Paillard in France found it in this old book and thought, oh, we're doing a Pachelbel album, why don't we put this as one of the extra pieces, you know, he puts it on there. They put the album, he made his own arrangement of it, you know, with the plucking and all that, and they sent one to this New York classical radio station from Erato Records in France, and they just put it on. The first piece was the canon, and their phone lines went down. And they contacted Paillard and said, hey, you need to market this in America, you know? And it became like the most popular classical piece in the world since 1969. Why am I saying all that? Because I'm going to play my own crazy non-canon takeoff on it called the Pachelbel Canon in D Fantasia, because with two hammers you can't play 3 parts plus chording, you know? You just mess around with the ideas, and that's about all. And then I'm going to follow it with a piece that I know was based on the chords of Pachelbel's canon originally, because I was there when it was written. And it's called Give Thanks with a Grateful Heart. How many people know that? Give thanks with a grateful heart. This is the perfect time for it. It's Thanksgiving month and all. I was engaged in early 1978 to row, and I was rooming with another guy who was engaged, Henry Smith, and he picked up his guitar and was playing the chords from this popular new classical piece, you know, Pachelbel's Canon, in the living room at our apartment in Williamsburg, and then he started singing the song Give Thanks. I said, where'd that come from? And he said, well, it just occurred to me while I was doing these chords. And we said, why don't you sing that in our wedding? And he and his fiancée sang it in our wedding. And that was the first time it was publicly presented, and no thanks to us, really. It spread to the entire world, every language. I mean, there's stories all the time. My brother's a professor of teaching English as a second language, and he was on a practicum supervision thing in the middle of nowhere in a remote island of the Philippines, and they were slogging through the mud into this little village of a remote people group, and they could hear people singing Give Thanks in their local language as they came into town. He was a groomsman at my wedding. He knew where it came from. So anyway, Pachelbel's Canon in D, and continuing in D with Give Thanks. Well, we have a volunteer bodhrán player here, so let me get it to him.
I don't know how this is gonna go. We'll see.
I don't know, but he made it, I was okay. Pretty loose. You put your hand on it tightly.
We'll talk about how you do it.
I don't do it much.
Yeah,
Yeah, do whatever you do, yeah. Did we meet at the William and Mary bookstore? Is that what I'm remembering originally? I mean, we didn't bear us
No,
out.
I think we just, based on advertising, showed up and we've been here ever since.
Coming to my stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You demand.
It was at your thing that a high school friend of mine showed up, right? Up at the church?
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
Am I remembering right? I played at your church up there.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, the historic church, yeah. I mean,
Oh, a high school friend of yours.
yeah, of mine.
You're
Yeah.
right, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, of mine. Yeah, it's like this couple comes in, they're sitting in the front row, like right like that. And they're, looking over the little brochure that people had printed up, and this guy comes up to me and he looks at me and he says, I went to high school with a guy with the same name, Timothy Seaman. you know, and I said, what's your name? And he said, Kenny Garrett. I go, yeah, we ran track together and all this type of stuff. He's a famous photographer and writer for National Geographic. He's had a career with that. His dad was the editor, Wilbur Garrett. But he came to this concert because his wife said, hey, there's going to be a concert, the Hammer Dulcimer concert. You want to come with me? He said, all right, yeah, I don't know what Hammer Dulcimer is or whatever. So he was sitting there waiting for it to start and saw my name. You know, it's funny. Anyway, that was... yeah. So, I guess we need something for you to play along with.
Whatever you say.
Yeah, how about, would somebody else like to play a percussion instrument, just thunk, 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 or ding, 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 ding? Any takers?
Okay, what would you like?
I got a triangle, I got a claw that goes clop, 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 tambourine, shaker. Take your pick. Someone else like to come up and get something? You want the frog? All right, you know how to play the frog, right? Here you go. You like that? Yeah. Are you the people that used to bring frogs to my... There was somebody who actually came to my program with a frog. Oh, okay. What do you think?
Well, what do you need for this next time to make a joyful noise.
Yeah, how about...
You got it. Okay, have that.
Yeah.
And use that score
So-
twice.
Now we need to know what it is. This is a mountain dulcimer, and a few weeks ago up at a festival in Connecticut, I got these things for the back of it, which I'm excited about. Drove to Connecticut and did this festival and came back during the hurricane.
Oh.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Pouring rain on these highway turnpikes. Anyway, so this is a mountain dulcimer made in Arkansas by the McSpadden Company. This is a nice one. These were originally called Scheitholz, had a German name that means block of wood or whatever, and the German immigrants came to America and taught my Scots-Irish ancestors to play this droney instrument, and they liked it. You know, like that is all droney, like a bagpipe. And they started playing it, and some people might have called it a dulcimer, but it was mostly called a scheithol. And about 100 years ago, they were renaming all sorts of things not to have German names, like Frankfurters became hot dogs, stuff like that. Did you know that's why? And because Kaiser Wilhelm was not our friend, and people did that, you know. But anyway, they renamed this dulcimer instead of scheithol. And maybe for that reason. And they also made up what I consider to be a lie. I think it was a made-up lie that this was a totally American invention. Because the Germans brought it over. There's still scheithols in Germany and all, you know. But anyway. Okay, enough said. This is tuned DAD, which is the most common tuning these days. And I thought I'd go ahead and play... since we have percussion going, I think it'd probably be best to go ahead and do the one with I'm going to put a capo on it to put it from the key of D to the key of E minor because of the way the frets work. And this is a rock and roll tune. Do you know this one? You might recognize it. I call it rock and roll because it has a real steady downbeat, but it has its syncopations. So I do syncopations off it, and mainly kind of get the downbeat and let me do the syncopations unless you get inspired, you know. But you don't have to match my syncopations, they keep changing anyway. So downbeat. Oh, it's the weather. So that's why this instrument has the same name as that one. It's because it was stolen, basically. You know, they're not the same. Anyway, but so this is about one of the most wonderful mammals in America. It's on my Virginia Wildlife album with a bodhrán playing along. If you wake up this animal during the day from his semi-hibernative state, and look into his beady eyes and snarling teeth. He may not look like a friend, but he is. This is called Little Brown Bats Eating Mosquitoes. This shows how flaky I am as a musician, or maybe because I'm 70 years old, I don't know, but I like to tell people this is how you pronounce my age. 17. I don't know about some of y'all. We're going to do some more percussion with this next piece, by the way. So if people want to, there's some more up here. There's a lumberjack and a tambourine and shakers and sleigh bells. Feel free to come up. This is a casual thing. I went to a Jethro Tull concert one time, a fellow flutist, Ian Anderson. Man, he played all sorts of practical jokes on the audience. I don't do that, really. Except if I say somebody's name. I refer to somebody by name in the audience, and then I pause and I look around and I say, I know all your names. Just kidding, anyway. This is a baritone mountain dulcimer, and I have a capo on it also. And really, seriously, we can take something. We're just going to do a casual community event type thing. If somebody wants to come on up and get something, come for it. Yeah, come and get something. Take it. And basically just thump, 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 or shake, 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 or whatever seems to go with what's doing. This is a medley of two old, they're not, one's older than the other. There's one called Shularoon that's been around in Ireland for a long, long time. It's most known from its application in the Civil War, I think, but various wars that had been sung as Johnny Has Gone for a Soldier. Peter, Paul, and Mary did an incredible version of it. Really fierce-sounding one by Judy Collins in the 1960s, if you're familiar with it. So you might recognize the tune anyway. So Johnny Has Gone for a Soldier, and then the second one in the medley, of course, is the appropriate other song about the same guy, When Johnny Comes Marching Home, written by a guy named Patrick Gilmore during the Civil War. And so he was waiting for Johnny to come marching home, and he wrote this song and became very popular. Did you know sheet music was all the rage during the Civil War? People would write new songs. People would go into the music store and say, what are the new songs? And there were all these appropriate songs, like The Vacant Chair, and Just Before the Battle, Mother, and all quiet along the Potomac tonight, and weeping, sad and lonely. And people would buy this paper and bring it back and play it on their parlor organ or whatever, and the family all gather around and the neighbors, and they would cry while they sang these songs. That's just what they did during that time. And nowadays we just put on background stuff and have somebody else do all the music. I think it's better to do your own, isn't it? That's why we're handing this stuff out. Anyway, so this is Johnny Has Gone for a Soldier, and then When Johnny Comes Marching Home. And they'll just segue into each other. They're different meters, but they work. So, and these are on Tenting on the Old Campground album. It's so funny. What the flaky thing I was trying to get to was when I started playing that other piece, I was like, oh, is there a little feedback coming through the speakers? Now I go, oh, yeah, somebody has a triangle. It's the creative mind here. No, it sounded great. Let's see. Boy, the time flies. I have 45 more pieces to share today, so, you know, the sun's already down anyway, so why not, you know. The other instrument I wanted to do with the percussion. Oh no, where is it? Crazy. Where'd it go? Speaking of being flaky, there's a black bag, a little black bag sitting around. Did I put it in the wrong place? Oh no, it's my penny whistle bag. I think I set it down in the wrong place. Normally I have it right with me. Is there something on the piano?
No, that's the seat.
Oh yeah, these are, well, we'll have to improvise. That is, did I tuck it over here? No. It's somewhere around. I remember getting it out. I must have set it down in the wrong place. Sorry about that. This is a bamboo flute by Rob Yard that is played the same as a penny whistle, except it's not a penny whistle. Oh.
Tim, look at the organ bench.
There's something way over there on
Yeah, the organ.
the far table like that.
No, that's a seat. Well, I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to. I normally like to be extremely efficient. It's the second best thing, bamboo flute. This is I'll do some tunes. Oh, this will be fun. I'll change to a different bamboo flute and back again. So I'm going to start with this one in the key of G, then I'm going to go to the key of E flat and back again. We're going to do some tunes that I like to do on the penny whistle usually, but they do on other things. These Scottish and Irish jigs, there's one called Christmas Day in the Morning. It's really a reel, and it's not I Saw Three Ships, which I do on Mountain Dulcimer, but it's a Scottish fiddle tune, Christmas Day in the Morning, and then there's another one called Calliope House. And then the third one, I'll do the Red-Haired Boy or Little Beggar Man. Do you know these tunes? Calliope House actually is an Irish pub in Pittsburgh, and it's an American Irish tune. But anyway, here we go. So I get a beat going and just play along. How many instruments do you play? And I say, I don't know. And part of the reason is these are all adaptable, but that took a little work to adapt that. Y'all are a good ensemble. It's one of the best percussion ensembles I've had. Nice job, man. That's right on to it. Yeah.
May we take a break?
Yes, let's take a break and then I'll have a shorter second half. You know, I was realizing if we go this long, I'll have like some things to, some really notable stuff to really finish up with.
Sorry
Thank
to
you.
interrupt, but I wanted to tell you where the restrooms are. If you go through this door here, then turn to your left, they are on the right. So those that don't know where the restrooms are. Also, at the end of the performance, we are taking a donation. If you would like to donate towards tonight's performance, there will be plates at the front door and on the side of the room. So let's take a very short 10-minute break. Be right back.
Thanks for doing that. I was not sure exactly what this is our stuff.
Some friends of mine, Mel.
yet to come. I don't know, whatever. Hey, found the penny whistles. I remembered where they were. They were camouflaged inside one of my bags over here, black on black type of thing, you know. And so, just briefly, this is my favorite. This is a chieftain from England. I have 25 of them in this size, but in this key, but they all sound different. This is my favorite. When you play a penny whistle with a microphone, it's better to turn sideways. For some reason it sounds better. So what would be a good one to play? I know. Is that too early? This is made by a friend of mine in Chesapeake, Virginia, Bert Berry. He's now like 91 years old. He's still working, making them. And most of my recordings are of this one, though I have several others. And I have this tune D-G-D instead of D-A-D. And what that does is it moves where the scale is, puts it in the key of G, and so you can get like this. And I must say that almost all the instruments I'm playing today are easy for anyone just about to play. You don't have to get super fancy with them, and you can make them sound good the very first day. That includes the mountain dulcimer. You can just strum and it sounds wonderful. You don't even need to use your left hand at first. Just listen to that beautiful sound of the strum, and then you can start adding notes if you want to. And the hammer dulcimer, just let the hammers fall. It just sounds so good. Dulcimer means sweet sound, and that's sort of what it does. The penny whistle, it's just a pipe you make longer and shorter. You just blow into the end, blow so that it makes a nice sound, and then you can do that in the first couple minutes, you know, and then add a finger, make the pipe longer. They really are easy. Now, the bamboo flute and the silver flute are different. They're not as easy, but a lot of the other stuff is. Okay, back to the hammer dulcimer. One of my favorite pieces to play that I've composed is called Hiking in the Highland Firs. And like with Sycamore Rapids, it's a journey, and it has a middle part that's different. And it's this journey is on foot instead of paddling. And so if you've ever been to Grayson Highlands State Park, you know what I'm referring to. The Fraser firs grow wild up there. And there are wild ponies and high bush blueberries and rhododendrons by the acre and these rock outcroppings in the Appalachian Trail. And the highest point in Virginia, 5,700 and something feet above sea level. Magnificent, exposed high ridges, easy to get to from your car at Massey Gap. And so how many people have been there? Yes, some of you have, good. So Grayson Highlands is called Hiking in the Highland Firs, and in the middle of it calms down for a bit, totally different. And that's lunchtime, sitting, feeling the breeze and the sun on your face as you're eating your favorite hiking lunch. Now for the next 38 pieces, now I have some new compositions, and I want to make sure I include those over the last several years. I mean, if you've been to my programs over the last several years, you might have heard them, but some have been released as singles online, like on Spotify and whatever. And others are about to be, hopefully, Lord willing, get that done over the next few weeks. It's kind of a high priority right now. And these two I want to play right now have real sort of messages. The first one is called Treasured Hope. And it hasn't been recorded yet, but I hope to release it. It starts out with depression. So I thought, what was the best way to arrange a piece that's about hope? And it was real upbeat and everything, real hopeful sounding. And I thought, I know. After a few years of trying to figure it out, I know, I'll start with depression. And I took a minorized, depressing version of the same tune to start it out with. And it kind of returns later, too, because things go in cycles, And so I just call it Treasured Hope. And then the piece following that is called To Gaze Into the Embers. And that has been released this year as a single, just on the download and streaming sites online. It's not on an album. And it's called To Gaze Into the Embers, and it's a memory to me from 1969 when I was 17 years old, and I was in my first New Mexico backpacking expedition at Philmont Scout Ranch with a group of friends from Virginia who had gone out there for this incredible 12-day backpacking in the mountains experience. And we got there July 11th, and we went onto the trail July 12th and went to a different camping area each time, some of them unstaffed, some of them with the staff and a program and things where they teach us rock climbing or whatever. And we're like 8 days in, and we were at this gorgeous high mountain camp called Camp Beaubien. And we're tired and wet from the rain and all that, and it cleared up, and we were sitting there after supper, having cleaned up and cooked and cleaned up on the open fire and gazing into the embers like you do, and we watched the full moon rising in the east as the sun was setting in the west. And the camp director came walking down, and he said, I just heard on the Motorola something I wanted to share with you all. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin are walking on that moon right now. And everybody else in the world was watching on TV. We were out in the New Mexico wilderness and knew about it. And so it's called To Gaze Into the Embers. So, treasured hope and to gaze into the embers. That's the latest arrangement. It's the one that I put on the recording. Now I need to get it live. Well, thank you all for spending all this time with me. We have one last medley I'd like to share with several different instruments, but it won't take terribly long. But I want to mention what they are. The first one is an old Appalachian folk hymn from the shape note tradition that I found in old books. And it's in this book, as a matter of fact. It's called Condescension. And nobody knows it unless you've heard me do it in a concert, but I'm hoping to record this real soon, just on probably bamboo flute with a dulcimer drone or something. But the words are by Isaac Watts, and they're powerful, as much of his are, like Joy to the World and When I Survey the Wondrous Cross and Our God, Our Help in Ages Past, and many, many that he wrote that people sing all the time. And this is one that nobody knows. Now you will know it, I guess. I'm going to sing a little bit a cappella like I did at the beginning. And then I'm going to follow it with a Scottish tune from the 19th century called The Broom of the Cowdenaws. And I included this as the ending piece on my Celtic Airs album, and it's one of my favorite to play. It stays in the same key all the way through, and it's, I kind of milk it for all it's worth. The tune, Oh, the broom, the bonny, bonny broom, is a homesick tune. And it's the words that go with it are like, I believe, about a girl who is far from home and wishes she were back taking care of her grandfather's sheep among the Scotch broom plants out in the fields, you know, and it's very homesick sounding, so I wanted to capture that somehow. And it reminded me of my favorite Scotch-Irish writer, C.S. Lewis, who in many of his books, in all sorts of ways, talked about a thing that he called an inconsolable longing in the human soul that is longing for joy with a capital J, and signifies that our home really is meant to be heaven and not just here. And I don't know if you can relate to that idea of inconsolable longing, but I definitely do. And so I look for that in this homesick piece too. And then I'm going to finish with the most famous of all Appalachian folk hymns, but I'm going to do it in an African-American church type of style. And of course, you know, New Britain has the words Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound. First published in a book in Virginia in 1831 called Virginia Harmony, by the way. Remember, Condescension, Broom of the Cowdenaws, Amazing Grace. How condescending and how kind was God's eternal Son. Our misery reached his heavenly mind, and pity brought him down. When justice by our sins provoked drew forth its dreadful sword, he gave his soul up to the stroke without a murmuring word. This was compassion like our God, that though the Savior knew the price of pardon was his blood, his pity ne'er withdrew. notes in the book and whatever else, and back with my CDs. I don't know how to do that, but.
We certainly thank Mr. Seaman for the evening and the afternoon. It's been great. Wish you all a happy journey home and a safe one. Thank you for coming. Good night.
So I guess if you do want to get a CD, you can just leave something back there or bring it to me either way. In fact, I can PayPal and Venmo through your phone if you want to. Thank you.